Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an exciting version of Chip Talks Health. We're going to do this one live, so this should be fun. Hopefully, you guys catch me in some interesting live mistakes or guffaws, but we will see. But anyway, this is going to be an exciting Chip Talks Health. We're going to talk about AI in healthcare. You remember the song Video Killed the Radio Star? Video killed the radio star. Well, that song is, and that's why I titled this Chip Talks Video Killed the Radio Star, is because that's exactly what's happening with AI in many, many places. So you'll recall the whole purpose of that song, Video Killed the Radio Star, was to let us know about kind of change, rapid change, disruptive change. And that's exactly what's going on with AI in many segments. If you're an attorney, you sure better understand AI unless you're a really good courtroom attorney, because otherwise you're not going to have a job in a few years. AI does a great job of writing legal documents, right? So when video came along in music, you had a whole music industry that was focused around radio, right? And it didn't really matter what you looked like. It didn't really matter how you presented yourself. It didn't really matter if you were, dirty or clean or bearded or, had a horrible appearance, let's say, versus I'm bearded. I'm not dirty though, but had a horrible appearance versus, a clean appearance. It didn't matter at all because we couldn't see you. You were on the radio. And I literally lived through this. MTV comes out, VCRs and Betamax recorders come out, whoop, everything changes. So now it matters what you look like. It matters if you can, dance and caper around and, have pretty girls or, whatever the heck in your videos. Completely changed the music entertainment industry, right? Video killed the radio star. So what's happening right now with AI? Well, and we'll get to healthcare in just a second, but I just want to tell you this from my perspective. So again, my background is I'm a mathematician. So I'm understand math and numbers. I love math. At one time I thought I would be, a really smart guy in math and solve some of these unsolvable problems that are still out there. There's like a top 10, math problems to be solved. And, I thought that I would be the guy to maybe solve one of those problems. Well, clearly I haven't done that yet. So maybe that'll be later in life, but not right now. But anyway, I understand, math and logic and all that extremely well. And so my first jobs in industry were as a computer programmer. And then as I advanced, I became, let's say, a supervisor of computer programmers. And then I became an architect of how you, build computer programs. And then I became an executive over a bunch of programmers who were doing those things. But let's say I understand, computer programming really, really, really well. And the way that you used to have to do computer programming is, well, first of all, when it first started, anyone could write a hello world type program. But when those hello world type programs needed to talk to other programs or talk to a device driver or, interface and exchange data with other things, now things got complicated. And if you had to store data, it got even more complicated. And if you're going across the internet, now you had network security layers and all this. So what happened is you ended up having teams, programming teams. Like I'm the networking support layer team, and they would write all the code for the networking support layer. And then you have the database teams, and they'd write all the code for the database stuff. And then you had, application teams and, knitting together teams and, code management teams and all this. But if you really wanted to do an application, a good size application, you ended up with, 30 or 40 people, big teams, a lot of complication. Most errors were in communication. rather than, stuff going wrong in code. So how does this piece of code talk to this piece of code? That's where the errors mainly occurred. And teams just not, communicating. We had project managers that would come in then and help manage us all. So anyway, I got to see that evolution of very simple coding all the way up to very sophisticated coding with big teams. Super complicated effort. So why am I telling you this? Why does this matter to you? Well, because in the last 3 months, there have been changes to AI where a codex like the Chat GPT codex now will do all that for you completely. I can just tell it, build this application, and it will do all of that rapidly in, a week versus years. Okay. So that's how fast things are changing. Again, as AI can rewrite itself, it's going to get better and better and better. So we're hitting that hockey stick of acceleration where AI is going to be in everything. It's going to get better and better. But what I'm telling you from a coding perspective is what used to cost, $500,000 to $1 million and require, 20 to 30 people now could be done in a week with one person. Okay. That's insane. That's way more disruptive, dramatic, and radical change than video killed the radio star. Okay. So we're hitting that change right now. Now, what does that do to our area of interest? Healthcare, right? So is this going to change healthcare? Yes, quite a bit. And the way that it's going to change healthcare is really around mistruths. Okay. So, does the healthcare system even understand your master regulatory system called the endocannabinoid system? No, it doesn't at all. It's only taught, let's say, at a master's level at, 3 or 4 major universities. It's not taught at a PhD level at all. So how can anyone in healthcare understand your master regulatory system called the endocannabinoid system? So again, how can you build a truthful AI model without understanding our master regulatory system? I mean, you can't do it. So first of all, you have to understand the master regulatory system in order to build a truthful and useful, let's say, health algorithm and way to help you with your health. So if you don't understand your master regulatory system, how can you do that? And when you look at how the current health system, let's say, is constructed around the lack of that truth, you have a bunch of different siloed systems that, seemingly don't care or communicate with each other. So let's say without that overreaching umbrella of the endocannabinoid system as our master regulatory system, you get lost. I mean, how does your immune system know what your feeding and craving system is doing? How does your immune system know if it needs resources, if it needs additional vitamins and fats and horsepower? Again, that's kind of unexplained. Central nervous system somehow decides that. The brain, that's just unexplained right now in current medicine. In fact, let's go a little deeper into the flaws, and we'll talk about each of these flaws in the current health model. So the biggest flaw overall is philosophy. Okay. So the current health model assumes that you're flawed and broken and that you're going to break around your genetics, just like your mom and dad did. Well, is that true? Half true. Again, if you're super sick, if you're chronically inflamed, and if you have a lack of essential nutrients, then you're going to break around your genetics. But if I can keep you free of infection, if I can give you essential nutrients, you have lots of ways to pipe around your genetics. Okay. You have 2 epigenetic systems, acetylation and methylation, that will help you pipe around and basically respond to your environment. You have a baseline that you have to start And by the way, this is just algorithmic programming. So you're going to have to do this with any kind of program that you write for AI, but you have to have a baseline and then you adjust, around that baseline. And that's exactly how you work. But if you don't have the ability to do these adjustments, and why wouldn't you? Well, infection and malnutrition, then this matters. Okay. But if you can adjust, it doesn't, it's just a starting place and you're adjusting your genetics all the time. Now, how do I know this and how can I very confidently, let's say this? Well, and I can say it this way: God is a perfect engineer. And, why do I say that? Well, again, you can draw the same conclusions and observations I do. And if you look at a cell is not built to be mediocre. A cell is built to be robust. A cell is built to respond. A cell is built to epigenetically change around its environment. A cell is built to understand state and respond to state, but it never trends toward dysfunction unless something's happening to it. By nature, a cell is always striving toward perfect form and function. You are just a big collection of cells. So as we understand this, you should be striving toward perfect form and function. Okay. So again, that's just a fundamental mistruth in the health system versus, let's say, God, or the big truth. And the big truth is you're a wonderful, beautiful, very dynamic and sophisticated machine. It's logically easy to explain how you work. It's not that complicated. We, have inputs that we put in our mouths. Those inputs translate into things that we need to run ourselves. And again, we run ourselves by virtue of that. And we have an output that is directly related to our input when we understand our machine. So where are we failing right now? Well, again, we don't really. Do you know any of this? You should. I mean, it should be taught to you in first grade. We'll get to essential nutrients in a second, but you should absolutely understand about your master regulatory system. It's like it's like we all understand the sensor array in our car, and we have a computer in our car that's always, let's say, monitoring things and looking at things. And that computer has a perfect, so it's always trying to, let's say, balance those things to perfect form and function. You do the exact same thing. So every cell has perfect form and function. There's a perfect form and function for your kidney. There's a perfect form and function for your heart or your stomach. And you're always trying to balance those things. But how do you do that? Magic? Occult? No, it's simply the endocannabinoid system, which is a really cool system. But it's not taught. So if you go to your physician, you go, "Doc, what's my endocannabinoid system?" He's going to think you're going to talk to him about marijuana. And that's how crazy and upside down the situation is. Hopefully he's self-taught. So first major problem with the health system is it's based on mistruths. And the biggest mistruth is that you're flawed. You're not. You're always striving. Again, we get sick, we are malnourished, we get infected, but our form and function is always striving toward perfect. The second biggest, let's say, miss or mistruth in the health system right now is no education on your master regulatory system. Gee, that's a pretty big miss. You don't understand your endocannabinoid system, the system that runs everything about you, that is your sensor array and your balancer and your the thing, let's say, that we understand about our car that's always trying to balance it to perfect form and function. Yeah, that's your endocannabinoid system. And again, your doctor doesn't know about that. The guy operating you doesn't know about that. Your pharmacist doesn't know about that. They might have got, 30 seconds in a pharmacological class about it, but that's it. It should be the focus, the start. Number one, how you epigenetically change. Number two, what is your master regulatory system? Number three, mistruth, what are your essential nutrients? And again, unless you've been listening to Chip, you don't know. You don't know. You don't know. You don't know. Now, here's the really crazy thing. Doc, what are my essential nutrients? Deer in the headlights look, panic, trying to remember from medical school, going to vitamins. They don't know either. Ask your dietitian, the person who should know about essential nutrients more than anyone on earth, the person who's certified and credentialed to know about essential nutrients. Dietitian Joe or Jill, what are my essential nutrients? Panicked look, going to school, vitamin output, maybe oxygen and water come out. They don't know. Ask the PhD that trained them. They don't know. Yeah. So that's how insane this is. Can you run your car without oil and gas? Can you run your chainsaw or your lawnmower? No, you can't. Can you run you? No, you can't. You're going to get a bad result. Thank God that God built us with so many backup and makeup and, you know, all of these robust systems. You're really hard to kill and really hard to make sick, but none of us understand our essential nutrients. And again, there's three sort of sets of essential nutrient categories. So dietary fats, omega-3, omega-6, and those have to be eaten in balance. All right. That's category 1. Category 2, protein. There's 9 essential amino acids and 7 conditional amino acids. We have to have them all. You'll build conditionals from the essentials with vitamin C, but not if you're infected. So we just got to have them all. Just got to have them all. The third category, vitamins, trace minerals, and metals. This is really cool. So if you pull up an AI model and you say, gee, what happens if I or anyone or a society misses with inadequate B and C vitamins, inadequate collagen, because that's what you mainly build from you build a lot of stuff from protein, but protein plus the 7 and where we miss is collagen. So what happens if a society misses with B and C vitamins, misses with collagen, overconsumes omega-6 fats, and underconsumes omega-3 fats? That's exactly what we're doing right now and how we're missing in essential nutrients. Wow. You're going to get back an answer like, ooh, that society is in danger. That society is badly hurting itself. That society is greatly increasing their risk of autoimmunes, of cancer, of Crohn's, of IBS, of diabetes, of nerve symptoms, of neurological decline type diseases, which, guess obesity. Guess what? That's exactly what we see in our society right now. Could it be that easy? It's not quite that easy, but it certainly is somewhat that easy. Okay. So again, why are we declining as a society and declining so much in health? We don't need MAHA to tell us this. We don't need HHS to tell us this. It's simply because, number one, you don't understand your essential nutrients, and number two, you don't eat them. Now, ask that AI model, what happens when I restore B and C vitamins, or, all vitamins, all metals, and all trace, get enough of the 9 essential aminos plus the 7 conditionals, and balance omega-3 and omega-6 fats? Everyone, the society, you climb out of the toilet. Okay. So everyone begins to get better. Everyone begins to improve. Everyone's health gets better. What are the physical signs of aging? You can look at me and see them, sadly, but hair getting gray, teeth going bad, eyes going bad, my bones aren't really weakening, but bones weakening, things like that. Guess what? Those aren't because you're getting old chronologically. Those aren't because you're advancing in time. Those are because you're collagen malnourished. Every single visible sign of aging is from collagen malnourishment. Okay. So number one truth that we miss is you are not flawed. You are perfectly engineered. Number two truth that we miss is you have a master regulatory system called your endocannabinoid system. Number three truth that we miss is everyone is malnourished as to essential nutrients in abundance right now. What's the fourth thing that we miss in a health system? We're all infected. So you're infected with things. And to our immune system, it's really cool how our immune system works. And I'll just walk you through some of the interesting things about infection. But how our you put a little name tag on every single cell you make. So I put a little chip name tag, blah, 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 on every single cell that I make that's exposed to my immune system. My immune system has a real simple task. Its algorithm is pretty simple. Does it have a name tag or not? If it does not have a name tag, then it ain't chip and I need to do something with it. So your immune system really has, let's say, three different levels it can go to. So the first developed when we were just a cell, and it's a kill, kill, kill. It's called the innate immune system. The second is as cells begin to come together and communicate with blood or mediums, we needed some way to kind of clean that up, and that's called your complement system. And the third immune system is something called our adaptive immune system. And it is what developed from us as a system as we got more complex. And it's kind of our antibody system. It's a softer system, but it's a sophisticated, it's a smart system. So that's kind of what your body does if it sees stuff that isn't you, okay? One of the first things that happens in malnourishment is our lining, our gut lining, our lung lining. If you're a female, your vaginal linings become deficient. And they become deficient mainly because of collagen, but there are other reasons. There are other, let's say, malnourishments from essential nutrients of why they would become deficient. But once I just collagen deficient you a little bit, those linings are going to suffer. And like, for instance, in your stomach, those linings are going to quit producing acid the way that they should and quit functioning the way that they should. They're not going to be as thick. They're not going to produce mucus the way that they should. They're going to weaken. And when the barrier weakens, you're going to get infected with stuff. That's just the way the world works. That squirrel that you see running around doesn't really have any infection, but as soon as you run over it and kill it, now all of a sudden it gets, infected with everything that helped break it down and decay it. So there's just part of the process of life. But let's say, there's areas in your gut lining that if they become dysfunctional, you will basically get infected. It will literally call in bacteria, right? Hey, I'm decomposing, come help me. And that's the way that, let's say, life interprets those signals. Easy to fix, eat more collagen, all right? But none of us knew this, and so all of us become degraded in our stomach linings. We get infected with this first stage of bacteria, which are like usually intestinal overgrowths that just get up in our upper stomach, and also things like H. pylori. When that happens, those guys will begin to rob nutrients. So that first line of infectives that comes in begins to steal nutrients. And in particular, B12, B9, and iron. So folic acid, B12, and iron. They don't directly rob some of these things. They just disrupt your ability to do it. What does that do? Well, if I screw up your ability to absorb B12, B9, and iron, now I have degraded your immune system, and I've kind of degraded your ability to defend your castle. And I've actually kind of opened up the drawbridge to other infectives. And so we get infected with other things like parasites and viruses and other bacteria and stuff like that. So all of us and that stages out, believe it or not, those barrier failures and how we get infected and kind of the lack of nutrients, that stages out. And so we can actually, rate you as to where you are. And that's part of our whole model, is understanding these stages and barrier failures, what they lead to, and then how that really translates into eventually disease. But disease is way over here. Symptoms of disease are, let's say, the end, consequences of all these failures and malnourishment. So the fourth area that's, let's say, a mistruth or not substantive enough truth in the current health model is infection. If you go see your general practice physician, and let's say you have high blood pressure or high cholesterol, the first thing that he should be thinking of is infection. I mean, those things, again, you have there's a perfect normal, and it's not high blood pressure, and it's not, in fact, it's not high cholesterol. It's those things managed and balanced inside of you. Anything, let's say, that's dysregulated inside of you that manifests into a symptom, there's going to be a root cause for that, because your body is always, it's always striving toward perfect form and function. That's the way every cell is built. And that's the way that you're built systemically. That's the way that, let's say, God built and designed you, perfect form and function. So again, if something isn't perfect form and function, like high blood pressure or like high cholesterol, that should tell us to dig deeper. And really, if you're infected, if you're infected with certain things, again, you're going to have high blood pressure. You're going to have higher cholesterol. So that's just the way it is. Cholesterol is a turnover and indicates how much your body is wanting to repair itself. Okay. Blood pressure is directly related to, infection and your immune system and your ability to, let's say, move immune mediators around in your blood. So again, the health system, how we look at things, seems to be, a business model right now, right? So it's a half-truth business model that is not going to tell you what you need, and is not really going to tell you if you're infected with stuff. It's just going to look at symptoms and then try to move you just barely, out of those symptoms, but not really fix anything. And that's a pretty sad, conclusion that I think we all have to get to. But here's the deal, boys and girls. Someone knows the truth. I can, go find research papers that support everything that I'm saying. I write a lot of, let's say, articles and stuff for medical journals and stuff for PhDs that is supported by the ideas that I'm putting forth. So it's not like these are, radical new ideas in healthcare. It's like we know the truth over here, but yet what we practice is this broken mistruth, half-baked model of care, which is sad. But guess what? Video will kill a radio star, and AI will be able to sift through all of this mistruth and misunderstanding and really begin to suggest and correct where our current health model is now. So what am I saying? I'm saying, be an activist if you want to be an activist. I'm an activist, and I'm, want to be and am involved in MAHA type efforts, and that's fine. But ultimately, this is going to break under its own weight, and it's going to break because video killed the radio star. AI is going to kill not just this model, the half-baked, let's say, mistruthy current healthcare model. It's also going to bake the, let's say, half-baked and mistruthy curriculum model in colleges. Like, why aren't you taught about your essential nutrients? And the curriculum model in high schools and in grade schools. It's going to break every single institution. Government, why can't government function more efficiently? If people in government are, let's say, not honoring their truths and breaking their contracts that they had with voters, well, again, that's going to be a red glaring headline when AI starts monitoring all this stuff, right? And looking at all this stuff. Now, should we be scared of AI? I don't think so. Again, I program, AI models. I help, let's say, build the underpinning code that led to AI. And AI will only be as good as an if then else statement. Now, if I can do enough of those rapidly, then that looks like I'm reasoning. And honestly, that may be what we do. That may be how we reason. We just may be a super fast, if then else calculator, right? And that may be what reasoning is all about. But anyway, it's only as good as if then else statements. Creativity is something that's unique to humans right now. It may get good enough to actually be creative, but where I see it as a really good tool is a truth model and drawing corollaries and drawing, let's say, associations between disparate data that we don't now to help improve our truth models. So there absolutely should be a truth model for healthcare and for, let's say, building health algorithms. But you can't do that with where we're at right now in the current medical system. It doesn't work. It will break because it's not truthful. So anyway, we'll leave it there. We'll be back next week with another exciting version of Chip Talks Health. If you like this one, give us a like and a share. If you're interested in, let's say, how you can help yourself with natural products and processes, that's what TrueMedix is all about. We're writing protocols for physicians. We're writing AI models, but we also have a really good line of patented backed supplements. So be sure you check out TrueMedix.com. And if you're in the Oklahoma area and you're looking for, let's say, non-medical care, check out Neighborly Wellness, our clinic that's in Edmond, Oklahoma. We are looking to expand our clinic footprint. So if that's something that's interesting to you, contact us. We've got ways that you potentially could do that with, our licensing structure. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys. We'll see you back next week for another exciting version of Chip Talks Health. See ya.